It's thinking we are live.
Mm-hmm. Look at that.
That's pretty cool. Hey
Yeah.
there. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Go ahead.
So, where are you exactly? What part of the continent of North America are you
I
exactly?
am in North Carolina, and we are currently under a weather advisory. We're supposed to get really crazy weather this afternoon. So my husband is advising everybody to wear their ruby red slippers and click 3 times and hope that we end up at home. Because the weather is supposed to be pretty wild starting this afternoon. So,
Wow.
yeah, but I'm in North Carolina. I live just outside of our state's capital, which is Raleigh.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, it's kind of cool.
I've never lived in the United States. I've traveled there. I've visited a lot of friends and family, but for some reason I know a lot about US. I think it has something to do with me being a very little girl, and my first learning institution was actually an American school, as what they called it back in the late 70s. But yeah, so I've always known the area, the geography of US and so on. So as you know, I recently moved back home to Sweden from Canada. That's why we have such a wide time difference. But for now, it's only 5 hours because we have our daylight saving a week before you guys, or so, a week or 10 days or so. So
Yeah,
I'm only 5 hours ahead of you instead of 6.
right. Yeah. And then you'll do daylight savings time next week.
Yeah. So then we would be 6 hours again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to an American school, 2 different American schools growing up that were not in the US as well. So I'm familiar with that education system.
Mm-hmm.
But
All right. So thank you for joining me here in this live tonight, because the reason, or I should say today, is because so I have, as you know, our Melly Education works with educational counseling. So I have people emailing me, contacting me, asking questions about how to improve, particularly social skills within their children and little ones, or even themselves, especially during the pandemic, because as we know, we've been very cooped up and not much social life has been going on.
yeah.
And as we adults have the opportunity to just turn on video chat and go on with that, is children haven't had the same opportunity. So there's been a lot of that. But something was brought to my attention during these months that I have started up Armelli Education, and I thought it was really interesting. I noticed that a lot of people are asking me about how is it that there are so many people popping on Instagram and Facebook and introducing themselves as experts in so many different fields at once.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost as if it's sort of a pseudo expertise, as the title of our live is, and it kind of made me pay more attention to it
Mm-hmm.
as I follow different things on social media, and I noticed that it is true. And I started reading and watching videos more closer, and as advice from my clients, because I really enjoy having feedback and people to bring things to my attention, to open my eyes. And I've noticed that there's a lot of times, like for example, I can only speak from my own field of education and social work, and I can only speak from that experience. And I say, like I see there's a lot of comments and all about, for
Mm-hmm.
example, children's learning, and then you see a person who is maybe not trained or educated in the field talking about something that has to do with education or child development that is absolutely um, not even a matter of opinion. It's just like, do it my way and be successful. Do it this way and be successful.
Right.
And otherwise, you're doing something wrong. And this is
Mm-hmm.
causing a lot of anxiety, especially within parents and adults or guardians, as in terms of. So, what I wanted to ask you is this something that is common in all fields, or is it something
I
that
think so.
can you elaborate on that? Because I
Yeah.
see a lot in my field.
Yeah. I mean, I see it a lot in my field. I mean, I was actually having a really great conversation.
They just called me and said they're closing at 4, so I'm going to get my vaccine now.
Okay, go get your vaccine. So my daughter is hopping off to go get her vaccine.
Congrats.
due to our crazy weather that we're having. So, it's kind of an interesting conversation because she and I were having a conversation last night. She was on TikTok and she is a pre-med student and was saying, there's this guy that was posting all these videos about certain things. And then when he's confronted and asked about it, he's like, well, and then he was attacking her saying, well, you don't have any experience. You don't blah, blah, blah. I've got all these degrees. And she's like, dude, you're talking about medical stuff and you have maybe a business degree. You have no relevant experience here. I'm a pre-med major and I've been doing research for like the last several years. And I've taken like all of these courses and, some of them advanced and graduate level courses in these topics. So I probably have a little bit better of an understanding of it, but he was, attacking her because, you're 20, you're stupid. What do you know? I'm 40. I'm smart. I've got this great degree. And she's like, you've got a business degree from a no-name school. So I think it's just rampant everywhere. And then I see it a lot in the marketing space, where everybody is calling themselves a business coach. Whether they have any degrees or qualifications or expertise or anything, they are suddenly calling themselves business coaches and advising people to follow their simple, easy 3-step process to do whatever. And it's really kind of terrifying to me because the one phrase that I took away with me from Duke when I was getting my MBA was, it depends. Not every solution works for every problem, and not every solution is appropriate for every problem. And so, I talk to a lot of people and we're talking about marketing their businesses. And I'm like, have you tried these simple steps over here? And they're like, oh no, I didn't even know any of that was possible, but I've been working with all these other business coaches. And I'm like, let's get back to some of the foundations and some of the basics with, your business before we even, move forward. And it's just interesting to me that people that are so-called coaches or so-called business coaches or whatever don't even have some of the basic skills in the art. So I definitely see that issue in my industry as well. There's a lot of pseudo experts that talk about, X, Y, or Z, and they just don't understand, or they don't even understand how their product applies in an ecosystem, right? So one example from my side is people doing Facebook ads. I could understand Facebook ads till the cows come home, but if I don't understand the interaction between Facebook ads, retargeting, doing display ads on Google, my landing pages and all of the pieces and parts, and even things like SEO on my website, and the Google My Business, you're missing a lot of pieces and parts. But, most people who do, they want Facebook ads, they're not paying attention to any of this other stuff. So you're leaving a lot of money on the table, and creating a lot of confusion for your clients. And they hear, oh, Facebook ads are great. Well, maybe they're great, maybe they're not in your particular circumstance. Maybe that's a part of your solution. And then, you start talking into the field of child psychology and education. Who knows what you're getting?
Well, that's exactly what you're saying, because first of all, a little a reflection on what you were just saying. When I, even before I started working with groups on Facebook, I didn't even know there were groups that were on Facebook where I could go and exchange ideas until I started working with my business coach. And one of the things that I really appreciated was that I was the one who approached her and not me making a comment on a status update and all of a sudden getting my inbox bombarded with messages that I can help you, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that put that trust in me, And when you talk about child psychology and education, like I see, like I'm sitting on social media. But you know what? People have said to me, Sophia, you don't want to bring this up. You don't want to bring this up in a live, but because you're so new into the business, you're going to make yourself look like you are being catty or picking up a fight. But this is actually me trying to protect people within our field. I don't have an answer or solution for parenting skills. I don't have answers and solutions for every educational situation. I don't have answers and solutions for every child mental welfare. What I do, I always say, is that I try to help families to reframe their own situation, to find that leverage and the way that is good for them to reach the goals they have. So, like, for example, you said coaches. Like, I see people who are something coaches, like, for example, life coaches, and they come and talk about education. They talk about bullying. They talk about dyslexia. They talk about autism. They talk about stuff. And I'm looking further into the stuff that they're talking. They talk about how you should parent your children. And I'm just sitting there rubbing my forehead thinking, this is not anything good in at the end of the day, because you are literally telling parents who might not have the same experience as somebody else, who have done their schooling, who have worked with this for years and years and even decades. And all of a sudden these parents and individuals are freaking out because they're thinking that if I don't follow this person who has a whole bunch of I have done these in front of their names, then I'm doing something wrong. And that's something that I've noticed has become very common on social media. And I was having a conversation with my mother the other day, and she says it's like popping up mushrooms from the floor, from the ground, the woods ground during the fall season, because she said, even I, who don't have a business Instagram, for example, have a personal Instagram to look at pictures of my grandchildren every time I open it, do this parenting system, do this. And you know what, Haley, it's gone from just being advised of follow our 10-step program or 5-step program or do these parenting things to the point of it's become parent shaming. Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't do this, or if you don't do this as a parent, or if you don't put your kids in this type of school or this kind of education, you are harming them.
Right.
And that's where I get almost phobic, because no, it's not true. Mm-hmm. If private school works for one child, it doesn't work for the other child. If the Waldorf school system works for my kid, it doesn't work for another person's kid. If one way of parenting works for my kids, it doesn't work for the other kid, and so on and so forth. But the fact that, and you have somebody who comes and says that to your daughter, like, what do you know what you're talking about? You're so young. I get that too, because I don't have that a whole bunch of stuff in front of my name, because I don't think it's relevant at this point. It's not relevant. I'm working with my clients. They already know my credentials. Why do I have to, you know what I mean? I'm the opposite. Like, I feel like people who are opposite to posting all kinds of credentials get I had somebody who telling me a couple of months ago that I make up my credentials. So all of these nasty stuff goes on social media. But at the end of the day, let's focus on the client's need than trying to say that, like, this is me. I have all of these things in front of my name. I'm internationally known. I'm locally known, this and this and that. But at the end of the day, you can only be an expert on so many things. You know what I mean? Yeah. So how is that experience in your field and in business and in like advertisement? Also, we goes with it a little bit that,
right.
that people are coming and maybe have a few things to say in one field, but then it goes into so many things that are irrelevant. And
yeah, I mean, it's hard because there's definitely lots of opinions in the world of marketing and business. And opinions are kind of like assholes. Everybody has one. And there's always multiple ways to do things. And there's, unfortunately in business, just as with schooling, with kids, there's no one right way to do absolutely everything. So, it's something that I particularly struggle with, because there are better ways to do things and less good ways to do things. There is no one right way to do things in general for most things in life and in business. I mean, and I've had that hammered home so many times, you know, with my kids. I have 4 of them. They're all 4 very distinct individuals, and what has worked for one kid has not worked for others. And, you know, I think that the challenge here, you know, coming in as an expert is being able to assess a situation and find the gaps and find the holes rather than trying to apply my system to every, you know, in my particular one size fits all solution to absolutely every single client, because that really is a path to failure. You know, I see a lot of people. I talked to somebody again this week who's like, yeah, you know, I'm going to build, you know, I'm going to build this funnel, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do the other, you know, and there's no like idea of how all the pieces and parts go together, but they've been sold this concept of, I'm going to build a funnel and I'm going to be wildly successful because I'm going to build this funnel. And I've bought all this software, so therefore I must be successful.
Yeah, well, see, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's just it just baffles me because my life experiences, my background, my understanding of any science that you put on the table, being it economical science, being it behavioral science, being it biological science, whatever you put on the table doesn't need to be an absolute, because that's the beauty of like, you know, science of
Right.
all these things. My next question to you is, what are the warning signs? Like, because my clients ask me, like, where can I see a warning sign out with people who are pseudo experts and come out there? Like, I give you the example of what I see as a warning sign. Maybe you can add on to it, or you think maybe you disagree with me, so we can maybe go from there. But I typically say that too much of everything is not perfection. Do you know what I mean? So again, if we go back to what you said, that we have a lot of titles in front of our name, or a lot of I've done this, I've done that, doesn't necessarily mean perfection. Doesn't mean that that person has the not. And I think it's also
trying too hard.
Yeah, it's trying too hard. Like, and also I feel as adults, when we feel that we know. We claim that we know something, we know about different topics, different subjects, then we don't know necessarily enough about it. So if I come in and say I'm an educator and a social worker, like I'm a trained educator and a social worker, but I can also give medical expert, I can even also give legal advice, and I can give advice on you name it, like business, then how am I tell my clients, think by yourselves. Like, do you honestly think a person with an age of 40, 50, some years old can actually have an expertise level in all of these subjects that they put on the table? Their grades, does it matter? Do you think that somebody with an A+ from Harvard is necessarily a more professional for your particular issue than somebody who has an average, I don't know, B, however you guys use in US, because in Sweden we don't have grades from universities, either pass or fail. So when you pass, it's A, and if you fail, it's F.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. Even having a degree doesn't mean you know it all. You know, a lot of very smart people. Exactly, Aida. You know, and so the challenge here is, you know, yes, you need to find somebody who has enough experience with a broad enough base with, you know, the topics that you're working with to be able to advise you, so they're not so narrowly focused that they miss, you know, the forest for the trees. But then you also need to make sure, you know, so there's this question of depth of knowledge in, you know, particular topics, but it's also in having enough breadth to recognize, you know, where things can possibly go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the challenges I see in my business a lot is, you know, people don't see how all of this stuff is supposed to connect to each other. And I mean, it's just, I'm sure it's a problem with you too, that, you see, well, okay, this kid is having an issue academically over here, but they may be also having behavioral issues over here, 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 and here. And some of that is that wisdom to be able to start spotting things before they even pop up as problems, because you've had enough experience to know, hey, this is likely to be a problem before it even happens.
Exactly. And that's exactly one of the problems that a lot of parents bring to my attention, or a lot of clients. And one thing that I always say, Haley, as a not particularly advice, but a suggestion, is that I say a lot of people who work in counseling, being it coaching, being it therapy, whatever kind of counseling in general term, offer a free session, whether it be 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, there's a free session. And I always say, when you go through that first session, really listen well, because it's doing counseling. It's not all about talking. It's also being an active listener. So I say, when you listen to this person, does this person use a lot of you language? Or does this person talk about a lot about does say half an hour of a free session go about 20 minutes about what the credentials they have? Or like I said, it's a lot of you language, or is it a lot of we're going to do it this way, you should, or a lot of advice giving, you know what, Haley, you should be doing this with your child, you should be doing that with your child, and so on. And I said, these should be a little tiny little red flags, in my opinion, because when somebody uses a lot of you language, it's not putting you in focus actually to maybe able to speak and take take charge of what is being said, what you need to say, and when you need to work with these sessions, right? Mm-hmm. And if there is a lot of bragging about credentials, then it becomes another thing that, okay, if I wanted to know your credentials, I could go on your website, or I could go on your page and read more about it, or give me a little 30-second intro. And then lastly, when it's all about advice, then it's a very textbook person. Like, I read this particular book here in university or college, and I'm just going to go based on this, rather than listening and see what Haley needs from me as, a counselor or coach.
Right.
So that's something that I can see is our three tiny little flags that should pop up next to our heads, like cartoon characters, and so.
Right. Yeah, Aida says, the conversation reminds me of when new nurses or younger ones come thinking they know it all, or when things get crazy on the floor, they have no idea what to do, going by the book, and things don't always work in real life. Yeah,
exactly. And I totally agree with that, because I experienced that in my field too, because sometimes I work with a family, and their teacher are telling them that, well, this is how it's done, and I keep reminding that not every child can go by the curriculum, not every child can go by the regulations that the school has. So that's from my field, and I'm sure Haley has her own examples from her field.
Well, so I'll give you a perfect example. There is this marketing model that has kind of cropped up in the online world. You come online, you go hang out in groups, and you go get clients. And, you're supposed to talk to X number of people or Y number of people, or maybe you build a funnel. And that can work well for certain types of business owners, but it doesn't work well for everybody. So sometimes my question is, well, have you looked at who your actual referral partners are? Somebody who might be able to refer to you in business, who your business partners might be. And sometimes I talk to people that have maybe worked with, a half a dozen, or, maybe only 2 or 3 business coaches. And they're like, oh, well, you don't need to be on LinkedIn because your ideal clients aren't on LinkedIn. And it's like, well, maybe, but your ideal referral partners may be on LinkedIn. Who are your ideal referral partners? Who else works with these types of clients that might be handing out referrals? And, think about that, who those people need to be. So like lately I've been connecting people who do life insurance, with financial planners, with attorneys, with those types of people. So it's not just about, let's come hang out online, but it's about, okay, let's figure out where your depth of your marketing should be coming from. And I think that sometimes things are done at such a superficial level that, some of the basic problem determination is never even done. Or, oh, you're going to go get clients off of Facebook. How many friends do you have? Maybe 100. Okay, that's a problem. Right. I saw the look on your face.
I'm always get so confused by this because I was told, like, I don't like to share my business stuff on my private pages. I don't.
Right.
And I was told that if I don't do that, then I'm never going to get my business out there. But here's the thing. I don't do that as an experience. I have a big mouth on my private Facebook. Okay. I'm opinionated. I go into debates and stuff. And I have noticed that if I have shared the link to my business on my private page, a lot of people who disagreed on, say, me liking Metallica and they think Metallica sucks, go on my page and try to give me poor reviews just to mess with me. And I don't, that part of my life, which I express my love for music, should not interfere with my business. So that makes me confused. Is that right. So this obviously won't go, but I'm trying to give this as an example to going back to what you said. One thing doesn't work for another person. So in this case, maybe this particular idea of having my business on my private page doesn't really help me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
you may need a different
exactly. That's what I mean.
To work from, if you're going to use that at all to be, connecting and going into groups. Because one of the things that's going to happen, as sure as, Sunday is coming, is as soon as you start posting in Facebook groups, you're going to start getting friend requests. Mm-hmm. So if you are working with a Facebook profile where you don't want anybody to friend request you and you don't really want people to come find you, perhaps it's time to find a different way.
So exactly. And that's what we talked about when we made it. So this is where our little two webs came together here, Haley, because we are talking about individual needs. And if you go back and look at my videos on my page, when I talk about kids and their needs, I say every child is different. And I tell you this, one of the reasons that this grew so big on me was because I stumbled upon a live not long ago. And I know you have to go do your thing as well.
I know my dog is going crazy behind me.
Oh, I thought, okay. So
she's whining at her food and taking the food bowl and sliding it across the floor. We've got quite the dramatic effect going on behind me.
That is so adorable. I love dogs. But I stumbled upon a live not long ago between a person who is a life coach and a person who is a child psychologist. And they were talking about how parents are harming their children these days. And it started off like a topic that I was glued to my screen to watch because, it's my field. It's children's well-being, mental health, all of that really interests me within my field, right? So I was just glued to this. And then eventually this whole thing went as if all children, all family dynamics, all child psychology and education is all the same, sphere, and nothing has to go outside this sphere. And it came to the point that it turned into parent shaming. It turned into parent shaming, and I was literally appalled because imagine in this day and age of pandemic, when parents are feeling horrible, so they feel that they're failing their children's education, they're failing their children's social skills, they're failing everything. You have to sit there and hear that if you are not doing as these experts are telling you, you're failing your children. Mm-hmm. So my whole goal with this live, and I'm hoping that more people share their experiences, is that watch for red flags when you work with expertise or with something that you need help from, because I have been in situations where I have been maybe harmed is not the right word, but misleaded. Okay.
Yeah.
From that kind of pseudo expertise. That was because afterwards I sat down and noticed that this person had too many degrees and whatnot, and it didn't.
I mean, I'll give you another good example. I set about a weight loss journey a while ago now, about 2.5 years ago now, and I started losing a lot of weight. I've lost 175 pounds, and then I had bariatric surgery as part of that journey. I had a lot of people while I was in the very most active part of the weight loss phase with various weight loss companies and products contact me and say, hey, I've got the perfect thing for you. We work with bariatric patients all the time. And I was like, oh, really? So tell me about the stuff you're trying to sell me. Oh, it's this herbal supplement, or, oh, it's this nutrition plan and it's got this. And I'm like, huh. So tell me how many grams of protein are in that nutrition plan. Oh, well, you get 40 grams of protein a day. And I'm like, that's really interesting. That would kill me. Oh, no, I'm sure it would be just fine for you. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And how much do you know about the bariatric surgery procedure that I particularly had? Oh, well, we work with bariatric surgery patients all the time. No, the question was, tell me about this particular procedure. And of course, they don't know. And had I, elected to follow that particular plan, it could have killed me.
Exactly. And you know what? Similar thing happened to my mother once, because we were at a craft show and this lady was talking about essential oils. And she was saying that these essential oils are so safe that you can put them in water and drink it. And she said to my mom, if you feel tired and groggy in the morning, you should take grapefruit essential oil. And my mom looked at her, and the funny part is that my mom is a biologist herself, so she knows what she's talking about. She looked at her and said, your oils are pretty concentrated, okay? Let's, for the sake of argument, say that these are 100% made out of grapefruit, okay? So you are saying that these is very concentrated drops of grapefruit juice, okay? So my mom and she said, no, thank you. My mom is not as assertive and confrontational as I am, maybe, but we walked away. And then the next craft show, I ran into the same lady, and she said, remind your mom about and I said, listen, you didn't ask anything about my mom's medical history. You don't know what medication my mom takes, because if you knew that there are particular medication that people take that you can't even eat grapefruit once a week with.
Right, because it will kill you.
It will kill you. And myself, I have thyroid issues. My doctor has said to me, it's very important that you get a certain amount of carbs a day, because otherwise you're like a car without any fuel. So you don't want to get that organ failure. And there are so many people, like you said, with the programs that say, oh no, go on keto, go on this, go on that, skip the carbs, and you will lose weight. And I said, again, like you said, if you don't know somebody's. I said, when you go into a doctor's office, why do they ask you what medication you take? Why do they ask about your medical history? Because
yeah,
they want to know. Because they don't want to kill you. So this is what I'm talking about. That's one example, the business example, and the mental health example. It's all about talking about when you are, there's a difference why people are clinical psychologists as opposed to just like have a particular level of training, because you have to be able to talk to somebody during counseling and understand, are these people self-destructive? Is this a trigger can lead further into self-destruction, and so on and so forth? So what I'm trying to say, if we bring this a little bit into conclusion, is that there always don't be sorry.
Always double check.
Double check. Don't be easily fooled by credentials, because people can put on all the credentials in the world in front of you and brag about it and show it off, but you need to find what's best for you and what is healthy for you in any aspect, being in business, being in education, being in mental health, being in physical health. Make sure that if you see red flags, don't ignore them. As Haley says, double check them for sure. And also, I want to just quickly add this to followers who are from Canada. You do know that we have provincial associations and regulatory colleges. So please make sure, if you want to make sure that, for example, if I am actually a teacher that I am, you have the right to ask my teacher's certificate number from Ontario College of Teachers, or my social worker number from Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers. Because these regulatory colleges and associations make sure that people who are out there are not just doing a job without being certified, so they can be. Do you have the same similar thing in US, Haley?
We do. We do have, you know, if you're, you know, almost every single profession, you know, for many professions, there is some sort of licensing body, not 100%. But, you know, it's definitely important that, you know, you figure out what somebody's credentials are before you work with them, and ask to see their credentials, you know, and check their LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn is a really great way to check a lot of people's credentials, because they'll list all of their degrees and where they've been to school. That's how my daughter cyber stalked the guy from TikTok. And, you know, it's like, look, dude, you've got a business degree. You don't have a medical degree, so you shouldn't be talking about this topic. And furthermore, you shouldn't be harassing minors on TikTok.
That's amazing. Kudos to her. She sounds like a very brave young lady.
She's something.
Should be proud. Anyway, so yeah, so this is one of I thought this live would help, because I'm honestly telling you, there is even in Sweden, we might not have the same degree and regulatory concept always. There are people who have put together their own education and so on and so forth, but you can still find out where they're coming from, what their background is. And I had a relative of mine who always claimed that he had equal to 8 bachelor degrees, and that he knew every topic that was on the table. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt, because
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I agree with Aida. Even people with credentials don't know what they're doing at times. And, you know, and this is an important thing, you know, always double check when you're doing stuff. I mean, I've run into this with my kids, with my daughter. You know, just because you're working with a social worker who's credentialed doesn't mean that they understand everything in the system, or don't understand particular interactions with medications. Even doctors don't understand things sometimes. You know, the MD is great, but they're not gods, they're not infallible. So you do have to ask the questions and make sure that you really understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So and also notice that is this person coming up with a sales plan, or looking for personal success? And here's another thing, Haley, I forgot to mention: personal success. Go on their personal pages, business pages. I mean, not personal like pages, but business pages, and see how much of the stuff that they post is about look at the success I received from doing this. It's almost, to me, is also a little bit of a red flag, because, for example, if my clients share success stories with me, and I post them on my Instagram or my Facebook, it doesn't go back to look at what I've done. It's more look at what they've done. Look where they came, and it's like, I'm pretty sure if, for example, if I have my business coach, Christy, if I share my business success story, Haley, and you're a business coach yourself, and if we share our business success, it's not about woohoo, look at me, what I've done, but look at Sophia, look how, like, you know, sure, I was a part of this, but at the end of the day, individually she made it. But when I see somebody who says, oh, look at all of my clients' books, for example, and I wrote the intro to it, or look at all these children who are happy, and it's because of my play program, and so on and so forth. It's kind of like more of a business than helping. But of course, even people in the helping field should be able to pay their bills. But it's still, there should be a balance, in my opinion. So it should be all about business, and look at
take everything with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, I do have to go.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy we got to do this, and I think it helps my clients with their questions as well. And even myself, I learned a lot today, which is great. I hope we can do more lives like this. And
I hope we can.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And you said I could share this to my Okay.
I'm
So
gonna turn off the live and